Good to be back. Good to be back. 1 o'clock Central Time. The Pete Sousa Show, of course, brought to you by Slovacics. Let's get the Slovacics logo up there, Scotty. I mean, Ray from Slovakia. Hey, here we go. Slovacics. It's almost as though they got Joe Namath to be their mascot. We are brought to you by Slovacics and, of course, Crawford Austin Properties. D1, Daniel Stark, Sikora Family Ford, and much, much more. Of course, we're powered by the Rogue Media Network. Pete Sousa here, Scotty Swingler on the wheels of steel. We have a segment that we did with Cam that will be towards the end of the show. Today, I'm actually this is good news. So today for the Big 12 and for ESPN, I'm talking to Kenny Dillingham, coach of Arizona State. And then Arizona State gearing up for a huge game called the Big 12 Championship against Iowa State. They're coming off a huge rivalry week victory over Arizona. And they are probably, if not the hottest, one of the hottest teams in the country. It's like they've been playing elimination games every week. So they're in the Big 12 Championship game. I get to interview Coach Dillingham at 11:15 or 2:15 today. And then Joey McGuire right after that at 2:30, which is pretty cool. And we're going to share those interviews with you here later in the week to get you set. Joey McGuire is not in the Big 12 Championship, but he did coach a team who beat both teams playing in the Big 12 Championship. Texas Tech beat Iowa State, and they also beat Arizona State earlier in the year. I mentioned Iowa State and Arizona, and the fight. I guess I don't even know if Iowa State and Arizona, they did get into it after the game, but that wasn't anywhere near what happened at Ohio State with Michigan. Some of the other stuff. This is what took place post game. Michigan and Ohio State. It got really ugly. Like pepper spray gets involved. Clearly, this is one of the most fierce rivalries in the country. This was Florida and Florida State. That is a grass surface, which is perfect for planting the flag. I don't know if you can plant it in AstroTurf. And this was NC State and North Carolina. It got ugly, and it continued to take place throughout the course of the week, or I should say the day, Saturday. It really was a Saturday thing. And if you think about it this way, Michigan, Ohio State, that was Eastern time, I guess noon, but Central time here, that starts at 11. So it was the earliest game of the weekend or of the day on Saturday, and one of the most watched. I mean, you have a 6-5 Michigan team now who pulled off a huge upset and a special game and a special win for Michigan. And you could say it was marred by the fight. Someone could say, and I subscribe to this, if you don't want them planting the flag in the middle of your field, you got 60 minutes to stop them on the field. Now, you also, if you're Michigan, that's kind of a bummer that by going to plant the flag in the middle of the field there, you do sort of lose a little bit of the shine on what was just an amazing upset. So you sort of do it to yourself there. You go to plant the flag, that becomes the story. But as a fan, I will say, and I have to bring in a caveat, as long as no one gets hurt, right, which people can get hurt, I have like almost no issue with this. And this is where I come down on this. The intense rivalries, the hatred, for lack of a better term, the war that goes on, those 60 minutes we're talking about in game on a football field is an amazingly brutal but beautiful thing. And sometimes I feel as though post-game particularly, we lose a little bit of the rivalry. We lose a little bit of the competitive gene that makes the sport so great. I love sportsmanship, but at the same time, I worked with a guy this week. I got a chance to do first round of the FCS playoffs, and I worked with this guy, Dave Steckel, awesome guy, calls games for ESPN as an analyst. He was an offense or defensive coordinator for Missouri for 15 years, and they had amazing teams. They won, I guess, the Big 12, the SEC. They played in Cotton Bowls. These were the Missouri teams that were very, very good. Finished the season ranked 4th and 3rd and whatever. But he talked about, hey, I hate losing more than I like winning. And because he was talking to me about why he hasn't gotten back into coaching. He's had opportunities. And he said that it wasn't suitable anymore in my life. He's older, and he would tell you that. But it's almost as unhealthy as a perspective as that is. It's also like sort of refreshing nowadays because there is a lot of sportsmanship that almost to me seems like it's bled over into basketball, and I think it's really devalued some aspects of the sport. And when I see teams battling post game like that, again, you don't ever want to see anybody get hurt, but it does remind you of, oh wow, like these guys really hate to lose, and they don't like each other. I liked what Ryan Day had to say after the game. You know, his team gets, you could say, embarrassed because they were so heavily favored and it's a rivalry game and they can't lose to Michigan again, but they do. And he said our guys just weren't going to let that happen, talking about the planting of the flag. This goes back to Baker Mayfield planting the flag when he was at Oklahoma, doing it at Ohio State. And Baker was asked about this after his game with the Buccaneers yesterday. And he was like, look, I have no problem with it. And, you know, he's probably not the best guy to ask as far as like a decorum, from a decorum standpoint. But, you know, he talked about, hey, let him play. Let the rivalries be what they are. It's almost like the Big 12 when they made it illegal to say horns down, or to not say, to motion, to make the gesture horns down. So I didn't have an issue with it. I do believe that it continued to build and gain momentum and steam throughout the day because of social media and because of, you know, I was out with Christy, my girlfriend, on Saturday night, and I forget what game it was at this point. I really do. But it was another, she was like, wow, there was another fight. And ESPN now is putting out alerts about fights that are, you know, this team, but, you know, they know we're going to watch, and good for them. We do. So I think that these teams saw the flag planting and they were like, okay, if we win, we're going to plant our flag. And it got crazy throughout the day. Scotty Swingler, your thoughts on some of this? You're kind of a purist when it comes to college football and tradition. You're a Baylor grad. We like to think that, you know, I'm not going to say uppity, but you like to do things the right way.
Are you just saying that because I used to be a minister?
No, not at all. I wasn't saying that. No. That's not why I said that.
Pete,
no.
I will discuss another game where there wasn't a fight, but it was wildly entertaining. It was Friday night's Georgia Tech almost taking down Georgia, right?
Yeah.
Before the game, I got this text from a buddy. Georgia Tech's head coach, Brent Key, said this about Georgia. There's nothing I hate more in the world. It's probably the only thing I hate. When I say hate, like, truly despise everything about it. I really do. Speaking of Georgia's football program. And I texted my buddy back and said, I wish Dave Aranda would take a chapter of this for TCU because Pete, here's the deal. Like with conference realignment and all the things that have happened in the last couple decades with college football, I miss the regional rivalries, man. I think that's what makes the sport. I think getting the Texas and Texas A&M game back is so good for the sport. I think when TCU joined the Big 12 to give us that yearly Baylor TCU matchup, it's so good for the sport. So,
and Sark kept his guys from doing the flag thing.
Yeah, and, you know, I don't have a strong opinion about fighting one way or the other. I think I tweeted out something like, hey, Ohio State's soft. You know, if you don't want Michigan planting their flag in your field,
you say, yeah,
win the football game. Like you were the heavy favorite, win the freaking football game, and you don't have a problem. But I love it, man. I love the rivalry, the pageantry, the competitiveness. Again, like I said, I wish Baylor would almost be a little more nasty sometimes when it comes to TCU.
So, Baylor, I do want to get your take on this. You know, it happened Saturday. Baylor comes back in their season after being 2-4. They run the table. They win 6 straight. And Sawyer Robertson has just engineered one of the best turnarounds in college football this season. They talk a lot about turnarounds now. Like, again, I mentioned I'm going to get a chance to talk to – you love this, huh?
That was the best play of the game to me. Josh Cameron just mean mugging, walking in over that dude.
Amazing. But you talk about like Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham. I get a chance to talk to him in a little bit. That's the best turnaround in college football. They won 3 games last year. They're going to play in the Big 12 championship. But on the field this year, Baylor's turnaround. I mean, Scotty, I can say this. This is before you started working here. I not only thought that Baylor could run the table. I told Mosley that. I told Cam that. I told both of them that. There's record of both of that. And it's not just because I had a bug up my rear end that Baylor was going to pull off a miracle. I thought that they had the dudes to do it. I thought they had the dudes, like about Jimmys and Joes, not X's and O's. And I do love Dave Aranda and his style of coaching, and they did it. As an alum, as someone who's been around the school for a very long time, where was your head at 6 weeks ago?
I don't remember if we've talked about this or not on this show. Man, I was ready to walk away from Dave Aranda 6 weeks ago, or before 6 games ago.
Yeah.
I think there's a buy in there, right? So it's 7-8 weeks ago, because it's really easy, and any objective person can understand why my head would be here, right? He wins a championship in 2021 and a Sugar Bowl. Excellent season, excellent performance. But those juniors and seniors were brought in by Matt Rule. He inherited a very strong tradition from Matt Rule. We had made the conference championship game in 2019, which was Rule's last season, right? So you win a title largely on the back of Rule's players, and then you go from 12-2 to 6-6 to 3-9, and then you open this season 2-4. Like, any Baylor fan who thinks I'm crazy for at that point being like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Right? Like, but he has shut me up.
Yeah.
Like, it has been, the last 6 weeks of Baylor football have been probably the most fun teams to watch since 2015. Like this has been an incredibly dynamic, fun, mostly dominant run. And I'm going to put out an article tomorrow, I think. Now you need to win the Big 12 next season. Like, I'm actually not satisfied if Dave Aranda goes 8-4 again next year.
Yeah.
If it's anything worse, I'm not satisfied, because I'm not good with a 4-year streak where the mountaintop is 8-4.
Yeah.
In this Big 12, in this economy of college football where everybody is vulnerable, it doesn't look like anybody's impenetrable. You mentioned Arizona State. Look at what Indiana did in one season.
Yeah.
Also going from 3 wins to.
And we talked about this a
10.
little bit, and we have, even teams like Alabama, they're just not as strong as they used to be, because the second string strong safety, who's a 5-star, is going to go somewhere where he can play somewhere right away.
It's going to go start somewhere, right? Yeah. I mean, I think, a lot of people were worried.
He'll transfer is what we were saying.
Yeah, like a lot of people were worried NIL would tilt the balance towards those blue bloods, but what it's done, I think, more is leveled the playing field.
Yes.
Sawyer Robertson is going to get offered a lot of money to go start at a bigger program, and Baylor's just going to have to pay him. But Sawyer Robertson transferred to Baylor because he wasn't starting at a big program, and there was a coaching change. So
we'll find out how much goodwill there is between Sawyer Robertson and Baylor coming up here.
Oh, he's going to stay.
And the next step, well, that's
and I have to say that because that's what I want.
Yeah, no, and I want him to stay too. But and I think he will. I truly think he will. I mean, having a conversation with the guy, he is. I just think he is about all the right stuff.
Me too.
And I don't know, but at the same time, you got to grab him and say, "Hey, this might be."
But to answer your question,
this might be your time to make a lot of money, dude. This could be it. So,
I got some pushback on a tweet Saturday where I said, "Okay, Dave Aranda's turnaround's been remarkable. Now prove it's not a fluke. Prove it's not a fluke. Like, go win the bowl game." I'm hoping to death we face.
Scotty, I got to tell you, that's a little frustrating for me.
Well, let me finish, and then I'll let you tell me why.
Yeah,
because like. A six game winning streak in a season that doesn't even get you to a conference title is not good enough for me. Baylor should be competing for the conference championship every year in this new Big 12. If you go blow your bowl game to some SEC mid-tier team, and if you come out next season and start 2-4, you haven't proven anything to me.
Can you wait till January 30th to tweet that out? Like,
we're gonna play our bowl game.
That's like, and I gave Chrissy.
We're gonna play a bowl game in 20 days.
I gave Chrissy a hard time about this in the moment. We went out on the Tuesday night before Thanksgiving, last Tuesday, and we go to Terry Black's. We sit down, we're having barbecue, our kids are there, everything's fun. You met them. They were here last week. It was all good. Were you here when they came up last week?
I was.
Oh, you missed them. Okay. So in the middle of not even the middle, like in the first 15 minutes, she starts talking about how Hard 8 barbecue is better than Terry Black's.
Oh, man.
Like, we're talking about how awesome it is, but you know what's better is hard 8.
I'm also
like,
just not sure I agree with that take.
Well, it does either way. Like this is a celebration of Terry Blacks right now. Everybody's enjoying it. Yeah. Why do I have to start thinking about where I'm not or where I need to be the next time I go eat barbecue? Scotty Swingler will not allow the Baylor fan base to enjoy this 6-game run that has got us to 8-4 right away. You're saying, well, next year 8-4 is not.
No. The first thing I said is don't lose your bowl game to some mid-tier SEC team. Like, and it's because I want Dave Aranda to be successful.
So do I.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And
time.
Like, I get frustrated when people say, "Well, we're Baylor, so let's be satisfied with 8 wins."
No, I agree.
I'm out on that. I'm all the way out on that.
By the way, okay. Let me bring one thing in. Talking about Dave Aranda, this is one of the reasons why I really felt like they had the guys, the horses, to make it happen. When we talked to him, one of those first games I called, and you have the coaches meetings because Coach Aranda is not going to tell you much. I'm very fortunate to have those opportunities because you sit down with him, and he talked about the type of guys that he had on campus, and he said, and he didn't say the term, but those muscle tees, right? Like he said, we had outlawed them. Like we didn't want guys wearing those, and he said, we got rid of that because now the guys that we have, they all wear. Like, if we had that rule, like these guys wouldn't even know how to dress. And he mentioned like these guys are about ball. They're studs. They're out there wearing the muscle tees, the tanks, and like that's who they are. And to me, after hearing for so long this person over player stuff, that was, and look, dude, I've said it before. I love Scott Drew and Jay Wright are two of my favorite coaches ever because they have guys that play the game. You're so proud of your players. Like Jay Wright, when you watch Villanova play, you would watch those players and you'd be like, not only are they good, but I'm like proud that these guys represent an institution that I'm tied to. Baylor's the same way with Scott Drew. Like you just love the guys. I called the game on Wednesday on radio. Jeremy Roach comes over. I mean, he's talking about God and talking about, it's a really cool deal. And forget about God if you get hung up on that. He was talking, I don't, but he was talking about gratitude, and like, it was really cool. And I was like, wow, these guys really are special, with football, I have an opinion on that. Okay. There are too many guys that are important to you winning to be so fixated on a certain type of individual. It doesn't matter. Like, by the way, I can be different than you. I can want to all day wear muscle tees and you want to wear a button-down shirt. And it doesn't mean that like either of us is better than the other. We're just coming from different places. And sometimes those different places you come from make you a little more on the edge and make you a little bit better of a football player. And it also does, and I am this guy when it comes to like college sports, it also gives certain individuals an opportunity to learn and grow at a school like Baylor, which otherwise they would not have. Yep.
Absolutely.
So I think I'm pumped about that. I'm pumped about Dave Aranda having a different type of guy back on campus, right? Just because they're different doesn't mean they're like guys we got to worry about. I think it's really cool. I do. I think like you need a little bit of edge.
And the historical perspective is, because you're using very careful language and I appreciate it, but the historical perspective is Art Briles was known for bringing in troubled people for a second chance. And that's part of what bit him.
I got away from him, man.
That thing.
It did.
It did. And so I think.
And I, honestly, if I was a college football coach, I'm not at all saying that I could get caught up in what Art Briles got caught up in. But I am such a let's give him another chance.
Yeah.
Because I was afforded another chance in my life.
Right.
So I'm like, let's give someone a second chance.
Well, and the difference is.
And that gets dangerous.
The whole Briles catastrophe was, in my opinion, and I'm not any more informed than anyone else.
Yeah.
It was a second chance without a lot of supervision. So what Dave Aranda can do, and I think is doing, and what Baylor should do is, like let's bring in the athletes, the Jimmies and Joes to win football games. And if it's a, not my language, troubled kid, or if it's someone that we aren't certain about their character, they're off the field, You set a high standard.
Well, I got news for you.
You put them around other good people, and you elevate them, and you keep them accountable, which is what Dave Aranda does.
Well, and I got news for you. There was accountability, right? Earlier in the season, some guys made a mistake that, and you can try and figure it out if you want at home, but and that mistake wasn't like a mistake that you will call like the most overwhelming, like egregious mistake, but they made a mistake, and a lot of guys sat out.
Yep.
And that's the message, right?
That's good.
And we sat here, Cam and I talked about this earlier. We were a little frustrated with some of these players because it's like, hey, man, this guy's giving you an opportunity. And you're kind of like, you're kind of throwing it back at him, which you're not respecting your coach by doing that. So, that's a lot of interesting, cool stuff.
Can I end on one more note?
Yeah, one more thing.
The celebration. You told me to celebrate. So here's my celebration. I was texting some buddies yesterday about, I think one of the biggest keys in college football is, do the players buy into their head coach? Because we've seen really good head coaches do really poorly at certain programs because they just don't generate whatever that buy-in is. What I can say for Baylor is they have bought into Dave Aranda. The players play for him. The players love him. All the transfers and recruits cite him as a reason they're here. So for that reason, I'm in. They've bought into Dave Aranda, so I will buy into Dave Aranda.
Let's go. All right, it's great, actually. At least let's just ride that till January. Then we're all allowed to get frustrated if guys get the transfer portal and stuff. That's the time for that. All right, we're going to come back. We're going to talk Cowboys, talk about Matt Eberflus being gone from Chicago, talk about my trip to call Tarleton State this week, and the Pete Sousa Show. Stay with us. Also, we're going to talk about how Miami's mascot, Sebastian, tried to hit on a girl on the sidelines this week, a young TV reporter, and he was rebuffed. We'll tell you about that too.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics, are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win and win pretty good. You know what I mean? I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I did. So,
deserved, man.
Which seems like it fit.
Sports.
Pete Sousa Show continues to roll on. Big 12 championship this weekend on Saturday, Iowa State and Arizona State. We're going to hear from Kenny Dillingham later in the week, and we'll hear from Joey McGuire, Texas Tech's coach, about how he was able to beat both of those teams that were in the Big 12, that are playing in the Big 12 championship. NFL football quickly on Thanksgiving. It was something that we could not deny. We were eating, we were hanging with our family. The Bears started to come back. And then Matt Eberflus, I don't want to say he got exposed because all right, so I heard the real story. I got a chance to talk to some football guys who know Matt Eberflus, and I heard the real story, okay? And you can take this for what you will. So at the end of the game, Caleb Williams, they're driving down the field. Now, obviously, Eberflus there's a connective tissue between him and his quarterback to the point where he gives his quarterback, even in the 2-minute drill like this, a rookie quarterback, gets the reins to change the play if need be. So down the stretch they come as we're looking at some of the look. Now it's getting kind of crazy, right? This is the last play. So he's supposed to run the same exact play. Caleb Williams was supposed to just Xerox it, which means run the same thing. At the line of scrimmage, he sees something different, right? He sees a matchup that he likes, so he changes the play. Now he's not running the same play. He goes all the way down the field, throws that pass, and time expired. Now, that's different than what Matt Eberflus had called for. Run the same play, right? Now, look, you can't go into you don't take those timeouts with you, okay? You can't go into next week with that extra timeout. So Matt Eberflus made a huge mistake by not using the timeout. As it was told to me by another football coach this weekend, regardless, you're the head coach, and it stops with you. When you notice that your rookie quarterback is not running the same play in the hurry up as you have advised him to, he is now changing the play. That is clear to you as a head coach. And by the way, you're not an offensive coordinator that's up in the box trying to say, hey, have him call a timeout, and then the head coach says timeout. No, you're the head coach. You know what's going on. You need to call that timeout. Matt Eberflus didn't. He made a mistake. That coupled with all of the losses that they'd had this season in such an ugly fashion, which, by the way, some of them you can't control. Like you kicker gets a kick blocked. Like that's not on you. But ultimately, you lose so many close games like that. You're accountable. You're the head coach. So you get fired. It sucks. But I wanted to share the full story, which I'm sure some football nerds know by now. But I heard from a football guy who talked to another football guy that he was supposed to run the same play. He didn't. He checked the line of scrimmage, tried to take advantage of a matchup that he liked in a time of a game where you don't do that, right? And you lose, and it couldn't suck any worse, right? Because everybody is watching that game. And it was one of those things like if you weren't watching it, because I honestly was like, oh, whatever. And then I was like, oh, they're coming back. And I just happened to be in front of the TV set. And then, by the way, the internet, undefeated, right? Like after, like there are times when you don't get on social media. And for instance, if you're Matt Eberflus family, this was not a time to get on social media. But for everybody else in the world, it was a pretty good time. And it was pretty funny. And there was a lot of good work. The one was Big Bird sitting at down. It was Big Bird in a picture with a bunch of other people in an office meeting. And it said me trying to keep my shit together while Matt Eberflus is blowing it for the Bears. Another one was a gentleman skipping, holding onto a balloon. And it said Matt Eberflus going into next week with his last time out. There was a lot of real good stuff. Yeah, it was a bummer. So I feel bad. You also feel bad. You know, people talk about, okay, Matt Eberflus, how can you feel that bad for him? He's going to make another $5 million next year. But his assistants are the ones that really kind of get hosed. So tough stuff for them. Cowboys win later in the day. Now it's a whole nother, and I got to talk to our boy Mosley about this, but now we've got a whole nother Cowboys conundrum because I'm going to call up the Cowboys schedule here. Okay. And I look at it and I'll tell you right now. All right. This is the Seuss Dog Swami. They're going to beat the Bengals next week on Monday Night Football. Okay. That's like a gimme. I'm saying I'm giving it to the Cowboys. Okay. That's a pick 'em. I'm going Cowboys. They're going to beat the Panthers in Carolina. And then the Bucks at home again on Sunday Night Football. That's a real 50-50. You could lose that game. But if you win those 3 games, right, and then somehow you get a horseshoe up your butt and you find a way to beat the Eagles and Commanders, which you won't beat both of those teams. You'll lose to the Eagles. But still, if you finish, and I'm not just saying that because I'm an Eagles guy, because they're piping hot right now. 1, 2, 3. If you finish 4-1, does Mike McCarthy keep his job? That's something Cowboy fans need to start worrying about because you have a guy that's running your organization who, by the way, sanity right now could be something that's slipping. And so, like, you could see Jerry Jones, like, bring him back. Another conversation now, as we mentioned, the coaching carousel starting to move in college. Now in Chicago, it's moving. Hey, that's a kick-ass job. You've got Caleb Williams. You've got it's the Chicago Bears. They're certainly going to pay you the going rate for a big-time coach if you're Bill Belichick, if you're Mike Vrabel. That's going to be a lot of fun. Another coaching job that opened up yesterday, Neil Brown getting let go. Is that something where you see Jimbo Fisher back in it? Does Rich Rodriguez go back to West Virginia? Like there's all kinds of – does my boy Anthony Becht somehow find his way? He's now coaching for the St. Louis Battlehawks in the XFL. It's now the XFL and the WFL. Honestly, I should be better educated on what that league is. I don't know. But Anthony's a coach. He's a West Virginia grad. And he's kind of back in the mix this year because of Rocco, his son. And anytime you hear Anthony talk, you're like, wow, why isn't this guy? Why isn't he in our lives more? And he could be if we're West Virginia fans or if you're a West Virginia fan. That's something that that's a maybe off the board, like 10,000 to 1 shot, but it's something to keep your eye on. So the coaching carousel starting to move around. I did think it was interesting that I got a little bit of insight on that Eberflus situation. I thought that was interesting. And just to wrap it up, I had the opportunity to call an FCS playoff game this Saturday. It was Tarleton and Drake. Drake, honestly, it's like, okay, where's Drake? I knew where Drake was, but most people don't. By the way, if you're Drake Toll, I can tell you where he is, licking his wounds for telling everybody that Arizona State was no good all season long. And he even went as far as to say that I know this because I'm Big 12 guy. I listen to Drake. He said that Arizona was going to beat Arizona State. And he's yet to apologize, according to some Arizona State fans. But I'll have to listen to Drake's new podcast. I'm sure he has. But no, Drake, the school, is in Des Moines, Iowa. And they came out. They started to play well. It was so much fun. It was such a beautiful day. You know, you're calling a winner-go-home playoff game. The production quality was real good. I was bummed. I told Cam this, and I don't bring this to a broadcast because you don't want to be negative. But like inside baseball as a play-by-play guy, on Friday we had our coaches meetings and we walked up to the booth, and the booth was enclosed by glass. There was no ability to go outdoors, you couldn't open the window. And that is like calling a game in a fishbowl yourself. Like sometimes they did a good job at Tarleton where they had soundproof stuff on the walls. But that was frustrating, but honestly, it wasn't an issue at all. So props to Tarleton with the soundproof stuff. And one more thing, Tarleton won the game. Coach Todd Whitten and his team at the FCS level. Now, this is one of those, I did sports information. I did PR. And when you're writing game notes and you come up with all kinds of interesting stuff, right? Well, my man Jake with Tarleton Sports Information, his game notes were awesome. And he had in there that since 2018, Tarleton State has a 731 winning percentage. And that is the highest of any Division I and Division II school or Division II school in the state of Texas, college football. Winning percentage, which go ahead. Props to Tarleton. That's pretty awesome. And they hit the transfer portal pretty good. One Baylor kid. Let's wrap up with this story. Dante Stewart, right? Not Baylor kid, a Waco kid. He played at La Vega. He had seen he had trouble getting playing time. He goes into his senior year. He's done. He's ready to leave the school. And he gets a job coaching at La Vega. And he was going to leave. He was done. And they talked him into coming back to Tarleton to play one more year. And he has kicked ass all year long. So it was a lot of fun. Calling football is a lot of fun. There was a couple other things I won't mention. My spotting charts were screwed up. And I had to go talk to the company that does them and say I was disappointed. I hate having to say anything to anybody about that because I always think it's back on me. I went over these boards beforehand. I actually caught one mistake. And then during the game, this free safety for Drake made an amazing stop on a 4th down. And I was looking all over my board and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find who it was. And I had the spotter and he couldn't find him. Finally, he picks up the sheet. We go down the roster and we see it's number 11, who on the spotting board was number 19. So Caleb Bowling, I'm sorry, I didn't get to say your name on the biggest play You probably made your whole career. And that ultimately it is my fault. The same reason Matt Eberflus got fired, right? So there you go, folks. Nothing like being compared to Matt Eberflus on the Monday after he got fired. Coming up next, we're talking to Cam Stewart, all things Christian Laettner, a special segment, the Pete Sousa Show, powered by Slovacics. Coming up, Cam.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
You are here with your shoot first point guard, Corey Dickman.
Also, if you're not creating new fans in a small market, then you're not creating that base of people to go to games and pay for merchandise and pay for stuff and concessions at the Moda Center and yada yada.
Yeah, let's talk draft. That's the only thing we have to look forward to.
The only thing we have to look forward to.
That's what I will teach my son. You will teach your daughter as Blazers fans. It's like, look, the two most exciting times of the year for us are the draft lottery and the draft itself. Like, here we are. This is our thing. Give me some memories and thoughts. I know you had mentioned the first time you had met Bill. What were some of those first memories that came back when you heard the news?
Sports.
Was playing today in the 2020s, if he had that same career he had in the 2020s, I think we'd be calling him the greatest college basketball player ever. And he's in the top 10. I'm not saying he's getting railroaded, but the way he played, like, that is perfect for today.
Well, and you talk about how his career started. He immediately was an impactful freshman.
Alongside Danny Ferry, who was the player of the year.
Yeah, Quinn Snyder. That was the team they went to the Final Four against Seton Hall. They got bombed. But yeah, that was a great time for Duke and for college basketball because they really started to gain momentum and gain a foothold at the top because they had gone to the Final Four in '86 and they went to the title game and lost, right?
Yep, lost to Louisville.
And then they were there again in '88 and they lost to Arizona. No, or did they?
I think that was before the Final Four.
Yeah. Okay.
Laettner's career, he goes to.
Were they in the '88 Final Four?
I don't think they were. I think they were one step short.
Okay.
In Laettner's career, he goes to 4 Final Fours. He loses 2 tournament games ever. Still has the all-time record for tournament wins by a player. I don't think anyone's going to break that.
Yeah.
For again the continuity and the portal stuff, and back-to-back national championships in '91, '92, and no one does that for another 15 years. And Jay Billis, who can be a little full of himself in these kinds of situations, had a great quote about this. And he says, "Oh, you know how like you have those 1 in a million, like top 10 all time NCAA tournament buzzer beaters? This guy's got 2 of them. He got 2 of them. And what people don't remember is 1990, which is to go to the Final Four. This is the first great Calhoun team at UConn.
East Rutherford.
Yes, at the Meadowlands. It's in overtime. Zach, we have the clip here.
This in the overtime. All right, this is interesting. UConn not playing the passer. All right, here is Laettner with the shot, and it scores. And Duke wins.
Well done, Kim. Dick Stockton on the call.
Yes, who is one of my all-time favorites. And is that Billy? Is that Billy that's one of them?
Yep.
And he says right there, he jinxes it. They're not guarding the inbounder.
Yeah.
Which that is a theme we will come back to. And it's such an easy play.
Yeah.
And they go back to Laettner, off balance shot at the end of overtime.
And
unbelievable.
By the way, to get to that game on the Thursday night prior against Clemson, Tate George hit a turnaround jumper in the corner off of a baseball pass from Scott Burrell. So UConn barely got to that game off a buzzer beater. And so that was Duke's answer. That was amazing. That was I was on board like big time at that point. That was an Easter Sunday game.
And so you're a Leitner guy.
Yeah, I was. I mean, you gotta remember.
Was.
Well, I still am. But that was when. Now I'm in 8th grade.
Yeah.
I'm playing basketball. Clearly, I'm white. Like it was very relatable. And so if Christian Leitner can do it, maybe I can too. Type things going on in my head. Yeah.
And so they get their doors blown off by Vegas.
Oof.
Really good UNLV team.
Well, they make it to the final.
Yes, they make it to the national championship game. They lose by 30.
They beat Arkansas, right? No, they beat Georgia Tech. Yes.
Bobby Cronin's.
Yeah. And Denver. Yeah.
And they lose by 30, which is still the most lopsided championship game ever. It's like they just got ran out of the gym.
Yeah.
Bobby Hurley's
diarrhea.
Shitting out everything and throwing up in the sideline, not fit to play in that game. And their backup point guard who transferred out that year, do you know who that is?
McCaffrey.
Billy McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Yes, Christian's uncle.
Mm-hmm.
And went out to Vanderbilt and did not get the next year where Duke beats UNLV in one of the great upsets in the history of the tournament, even a 1 seed versus a 2 seed.
They hadn't lost.
UNLV was undefeated, and they'd beaten this team by 30 points the year before.
Yeah.
And Duke beats him in Indianapolis. Like, incredible stuff. Leitner has an awesome game, and he buries the 2 free throws to win the game. They win the national championship.
And that, just to interject, that UNLV team, now this is back in my day, they were on ESPN, but they played very late at night.
Culturally significant team.
Culturally significant. It was one of those deals like, did you see UNLV last night play Long Beach State? Like, because again, they play late. They ESPN found a way to get them on the national game. But
They
then you
dunked
would
40 times and
and you would
won
talk
by
about
40
it.
points.
Sports radio, even in a market like Philadelphia, would talk about UNLV the next day and what they did. It was nationwide. Like something was going on with this program, and they hadn't lost, and they kind of did start to be those bad boys. And then it was like,
I
oh
couldn't
my God.
believe that you weren't a big UNLV fan.
No, and then it was like, oh my God, did you hear Larry Johnson is like 30? And it was like,
And he,
wait
like,
a
can't
minute.
read and-
yeah. Did you see him? There was literally a picture of Stacey Augmon and Larry Johnson in a pool with this man named Richard the Fixer Perry. They were in his hot tub in Vegas. I mean, it was very clear what was going on out there.
And this was like, again, we talk cultural significance. I still don't know how much that happens in college basketball today, but like at the time, Miami in football, UNLV in basketball, same thing.
Yeah.
Thugs who were really
You're calling
good,
them
but
thugs.
starting five. I mean, people were calling them thugs, man. Like, I don't even think they are or were, but that's it. And Michigan's Fab Five got the same thing. And they were painted with this broad brush of thugs who don't play the game the right way, and quite frankly, very black teams.
Yeah.
Which at the turn of the 90s,
dude, it was racism.
I mean, yes, like that's still something the country is very much getting used to. HW and Dan Quayle are in the Oval Office telling you how bad the Simpsons are. You think they're going to like UNLV and Miami? Like, no fucking way, man. Like, no way. And every time those teams would slip up, it became a huge thing. You know, if they got in a pushing match or whatever. And meanwhile, here's Christian Leitner stepping on guys. And dude, there is a great. So you've seen the 30 for 30, right?
Yeah, I haven't seen a little bit. Last time I saw it was probably a couple years ago.
I had forgotten about this. There's an unbelievable clip in there from when he was in high school. So now Leitner gets painted again with a broad brush in a different way of Duke kid, white privilege, rich, and it's just not at all true.
Not true at all.
His mom was a public school teacher. He had to work as a custodian at the prep school he was at to pay tuition. And so he plays at this elite private prep school in Buffalo, and they're taking on for, I don't know, city championship or state championship, this all black inner city team that is like, we're going to take this kid out. Like, damn it, Pete. Like this white boy's got nothing on us kind of thing. Just this rich kid, we'll take him to school. And Leitner crushed him. Like they won the game by 20 points. And I think they had to call the game off early with like a minute or two to go because
The hostility?
Because Leitner blocks a shot and then gets a rebound and just flings an elbow down at this kid and starts looking forward. And it's a total melee. It's a great, it's great video that they still have from like whatever, 88 or whatever. Yeah. And there's like all out melee punches and cops out there trying to hold kids back. There are assistant coaches like punching players. It's unbelievable. And they're showing the stands at the odd, and it's a free for all. And then they show Leitner leading his team back in the locker room, finger up in the air, like just egging them all on. It is so perfect that moment comes in. It takes such a precursor.
Well, and it takes a certain type of individual to embrace that.
Oh man,
to love that, to become like the guy who goes on the road, who enjoys being booed, and he was that guy. He even, I think they touch on this in the documentary. There were rumors that he and Brian Davis, his teammate, were gay
because they were so close.
Yes,
yeah.
and he kind of almost played into that.
Yes,
like they would chant
way before, like 25 years before anyone would play into that.
Yes,
JJ Redick was not doing that.
No,
You know?
and it was pretty amazing. And but back to the conversation, and again, I'll let you steer this, but like he was amazing. Like he was so
one of the best college players ever.
I'm listening to, and I keep saying this, I'm almost done finally. I'm listening to the Vern Lundquist book. The most recent thing, he called the game with Clark Kellogg, where they beat Kentucky. He hits the shot, which I'm sure you're about to talk about.
Yeah.
But Christian Laettner was perfect. From the free throw line, from the floor. Vern's big regret was, as a play-by-play guy, just remember, we're not perfect, Cam. He forgot, he didn't mention that down the stretch, that Laettner was perfect, and that was like a huge regret of his. He's like, I should have built up to that. Like, he's perfect so far from the floor tonight.
One more thing on Brian Davis, because I found this interesting.
I liked Brian Davis. He was good.
Good player.
Yeah.
And he's a big player in this documentary, and he came from a really, really tough upbringing, like really tough inner city thing. I think outside of Baltimore. I might be wrong on that. Or in Baltimore. And he's talking about the Fab Five, and the Fab Five obviously thinking that, you know, we're the street guys, and Leitner's this pretty boy, and they call Grant Hill and Uncle Tom, which is like a horrible thing to say. But Brian Davis is talking about it in the documentary, and he's like, I'm more hood than any of these motherfuckers. Like he's like, I'm seeing Chris Webber go to something country day school. You know, I'm more hood than any of these motherfuckers combined. And he's like, and I play for Duke, and it was so good. But that 92 Kentucky game, Elite Eight, it's cliche to say this, but I think it's true. It's probably the greatest college basketball game ever. In terms of the high-end talent, the two teams,
the characters,
and
Pitino
and Krzyzewski. Jamal Mashburn obviously carried that Kentucky team.
At the Spectrum, America's Showplace, the Philadelphia Spectrum.
The context is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Right? Like normally you see Duke and Kentucky and you're like Clash of the Titans. But this is a Kentucky team that is a couple years removed from basically the death penalty.
Yep.
And the unforgettables, all those guys who stuck around, Kentucky kids, and now they're one step from the Final Four. They are taking on mighty Duke, which at this time is still very much in the new blood category. They'd only won one national championship. They're the defending champs. They've got the best player on the planet, and it is blow for blow the whole game.
Yeah.
And it's 101 to 100 at the end of towards the end of overtime here. Fresh Woods hits this ridiculous shot, and Kentucky is going to win.
Got lucky, pretty much.
They show this home video of a Kentucky fan after the shot. He's freaking out. He's like, we're going to beat him. We're going to beat him. We're going to beat him. And 2.1 seconds. It is just the perfect culmination of great players, great coaching. 2.1 seconds left. Grant Hill throwing the ball from the under the basket to the free throw line. No one guarding the inbounder, just the same. And I don't have audio on this, but Zach, I think we just need to see.
3. You know, one of the things I've seen Duke do in the past in situations like this is try for the quick pass to half court and call a quick timeout so they can get in better shooting range.
There's the pass to Leitner. Puts it up. Yes!
We talked about a quick pass to half court. But with people playing behind Christian Laettner.
So as a kid, I remember I think I was actually pulling for Kentucky at this point because Duke had no. Cam, you'll enjoy this about me. Like, Kentucky was the underdog. Duke was no longer the underdog. They had gone to the summit. They'd won a championship. So I was pulling for Kentucky, and I remember seeing Thomas Hill with that emotional face. I was like, oh my God, maybe the buzzer went off. Maybe you're a kid. You're like, oh, wait. Like, but it was, I mean, that was one of the most amazing moments ever for me watching sports as a kid. No question about it.
And I got, like, when I was
A
watching.
couple of my friends were at the game. So jealous. Drew Zook and Tony Hayden.
Geez,
Go ahead.
Should have them on.
So,
on the anniversary or something. I'm watching it last night. I had an edible, so I think I appreciated some of the stuff more. But when I watch that now, I'm like, it's like the perfect basketball play. It's art, actually. That Grant just on a dime, like this pass is not, I mean, they're not guarding the inbounder, so it's not as tough as it could be, but it's not easy. And he hits him right in the numbers. And Laettner has the perfect internal clock that he fakes one way, dribbles, which no one in their mind would dribble at that point, but he knows he has that time, and then goes the other way, fade away. It's absolutely perfect. You couldn't have done it any better in the movie Hoosiers. Like, it's the perfect play. Like, that is like anything you practiced in your driveway.
And that's the end of
that's how you want.
That's his senior year.
Yes.
So
he played the perfect game.
Yeah.
Now you're defending the title, and it's all on this play.
And it was one of those things like
Mike Krzyzewski drawing up the play, Grant Hill throwing the pass, and Christian Laettner making the shot to beat Kentucky. It's all college basketball perfection in that play. It's why it's probably the greatest play in the history of college basketball, or most replayed.
And that's when Christian Laettner was. And this was before, and I'm not comparing the two at all, but it was before Michael Jordan was a guy who it was like, oh my God, you can't beat this guy. Like there became a point in time.
Cut his head off completely.
There was a point in time where it was understood that you couldn't beat Michael Jordan. And this was before that, on the college level, you couldn't beat Christian Laettner. Like, oh my God, you just can't beat him. Like, this is
still one of the top 10 greatest ever.
And hold on, his pro career. Hold on, what's this real quick?
He made an all-star team.
Yeah, he did with the Hawks. He was not,
and was on the dream team.
A pretty good pro. I mean, a pretty good pro.
Solid. Yeah.
A very long career too.
Yeah, probably played 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's exceptional to play that long.
But wasn't Christian Laettner the way he was in college, and so that's what people look at. Unfortunately,
is that what in the documentary did
Danny Ferry had a flame out career? You know?
Oh, Danny Ferry was awful.
Yes, like he was not a good player.
No. Did he play in Europe? I think he was
almost certainly.
There was controversy around when he got drafted if he was going to go right to Europe if he got taken by the Clippers. I think that was it. Maybe, and he did.
Can I get one more quick story in here on Danny Ferry before we close this
Absolutely,
out?
Yeah.
So, Danny Ferry was the first big time recruit that Duke beat Carolina for. It's the first one that Krzyzewski beat out Dean Smith for.
Bob Ferry, his father.
Yeah, so Danny is a nationally big time player.
DC kid, right?
Yes, everyone knows he's going to be a fantastic player. And so Duke was hard recruiting him my dad's last year at Duke. And Duke was playing Harvard at Cameron, and Danny Ferry's brother played for Harvard. And so what they were going to do, the Cameron Crazies, was like, you know, we're going to boo everyone, but when they announced Danny Ferry's brother, we're going to go nuts. He's going to see how great we are. He's going to come and play for us. And so I don't remember Danny's brother's name, but they announced, you know, from DC, 6'5", 6'2", you know, Bobby Ferry, and the place goes berserk. And then out of the Harvard huddle comes this like 6'10" black guy, and he goes out when they announce Ferry's name, and the whole crowd's like, like what? and the Harvard bench is just laughing.
No way, they decided to do that.
Yes,
Really? All
and
right.
I'm like, that is perfect.
That's good. Yeah,
some great Cameron Crazy stories that I'll have to tell at some point.
Yeah, you'll have to.
Okay. I will have to.
Yeah.
Anyway.
By the way, I told you Baylor was going to win out, and they did.
You did.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. It really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
I mean, yeah, a new coach comes in, they're going to turn the roster. I think that's just we've got all these transfer portal stats and what Dion did and what Fritz has done. I mean, that's the deal, man. That's the game that's being played nowadays.
Maybe a little bit unknown at quarterback. I mean, unknown to the rest of the world, but you know, he dove into the portal and got a guy who is super, super athletic.
South Dakota State's really good. Give us a little bit of breakdown about what they can do and what Oklahoma State needs to be worried about.
But look at that form right there. I need to say nothing else about this because I found one.
It is Matt Mosley, and it's the Obstructed View podcast, Rogue Media Network. I think they're learning that there's really no wonderful view of me. See, I feel like they think this feed's going to be really wonderful.
There must have been, no BS, like 20 scouts, 15 to 20 NBA scouts there to see him, and he was top 5.
When your old number wasn't working, I went through various channels to track you down. So unfortunately, you can never get away from me. But I'm happy to have you today.
Nah, thanks for having me. And you know we always family no matter where I'm at.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win and win pretty good. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it did. So,
deserved it, man.
Which seems like it fit.
Welcome to a special edition of the Doomsday Podcast. Look at this. We got one of the great golfers in the world, certainly one of the great pass rushers in NFL history.
But he also had a vision for you. And so it was like you had the best of both worlds, right? You had somebody on you early, and then you had somebody who was maybe
more relaxed.
What were a couple of your biggest takeaways?
The person you referred to that I spoke with, I've spoken to some personnel people and general management of the league to get some, independent, objective assessments of the players the Cowboys picked, and we'll go through that.
Has the general manager changed at all in the draft? Nope, it's been the same since I was here the last time.
We are Rogue Media Sports.